This was one of the busiest trade deadlines in MLB history. I am here to break down the fantasy impact of some of the biggest names that got moved at the deadline, like Jack Flaherty, Eloy Jimenez, and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I am your host, Dominic Martino, riding solo today. If you are listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And guys, lastly, but most importantly to Matt and I, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experiencing through text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we do in this 30-minute episode. And if you do want to give us a chance on Subtext, you can find the link wherever you're listening or watching. If not, it's available on any of our social media platforms. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for your first deposit match up to $100. And all right, folks, I'm super excited. We have a great episode for you today. Some trade deadline madness. Honestly, I could not be more excited. We have some great deals, and I'm breaking down the 10 biggest names that got traded. And I think there's an obvious place to start. Let's go with Jack Flaherty. He goes from those Detroit Tigers over to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I'll be honest with you, I think the Dodgers got him for nothing. They give up catcher first baseman. Excuse me if I pronounced this gentleman's name wrong. Tyron Lizarano and shortstop Trey Sweeney. Just I feel like basically nothing for a Jack Flaherty who has bounced back monstrously this season. Our boy Jack Flaherty, 28 years old, had plenty left in the tank. I was a big Jack Flaherty guy, was taking him at the end of my drafts in deeper leagues. And then when he started to look good at the beginning of the year, I was pretty much giving him the shot in every league I could. Honestly, I wound up with a lot of shares. So once again, 18 starts from Jack Flaherty this year, 2.95 ERA, 106 innings, 133 strikeouts, only 19 walks. I think that's been a huge reason for his success. A 3.11 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching. That's an ERA indicator. So he's basically right in line with the ERA. Love to see that. And the whip is under 1. Once again, that comes from the ability to suppress walks this year. When you look at the underlying stuff for Flaherty, pretty much everything looks really good. The whiffing, the strikeout percentage, he's not really giving up walks, they're not hitting him hard. The underlying stuff when it comes to ERA looks great. When it comes to X batting average, he's getting good movement on all of his pitches. As far as the results go, getting great, fantastic results on his fastball, his slider, his knuckle curve. Honestly, he's just bounced back in a way that we weren't sure if it was possible. And Jack Flaherty, in my opinion, is a top, I'd say 25 at minimum 30 starting pitcher the rest of the way next year. I'll be ranking Jack Flaherty very high. And when it comes to those Dodgers, we might be sitting back and saying, you know what, Dom, why would the Dodgers make a move like this? You know what? They do have a lot of starting pitching, but I think that depth is in very much question. We know Glass now, his question mark is the innings, has not thrown this many innings in his career before. Kershaw, the older, fragile guy. Gavin Stone, the inning question. River Ryan, another inning question guy. Yamamoto, how healthy is he going to be? Walker Buehler's been horrible this year. We know Sheehan and May and Gonsolin probably are not coming back this year. Bobby Miller, who was sent to the minors, has been putrid as well. So with all of those question marks, I think the Dodgers wanted a little bit more security. We know Flahry has just bounced back this year, but you know what? We're just only talking about this year. And the guy, I think, can pitch the rest of the way pretty well. And when it comes to the playoff time, the Dodgers need another arm. And then you know what? If everything works out great, they can have potentially 5 great pitchers. But if things kind of stay the way they are for the Dodgers, I see why they went out and got Flaherty. And you know, when you didn't have to give up a lot to get a guy like this, I think it really works out in your favor. I'm just surprised there weren't teams giving out a better offer for a guy like Jack Flaherty. When Baltimore went out there and gave up Conor Norby, a little spoiler alert here, we might touch on this one later, for Trevor Rogers. Why was the Jack Flaherty hold not a little bit better? I'm unsure of it. I'll sit here and ponder it for a while. But with that being said, that's a lot on Jack Flaherty. Overall, let's grade these. I give the Jack Flaherty trade for the Dodgers an A. I really think it's everything they needed. Didn't have to give up a lot, and it shores up a guy in the postseason that has been really good in the past, has been really good this year. Something that can't hurt you going forward. So let's move on to this next player. Another big, huge one from today, in my opinion. Eloy Jimenez goes over to those Baltimore Orioles from those Chicago White Sox. And I really just like this one for Eloy Jimenez from a fantasy baseball perspective. And that is what we are here talking about today. So another guy that was just honestly traded for pretty cheap. The Orioles got Eloy Jimenez from the White Sox for left-handed pitcher Trey McGow. Not super familiar with Trey McGow. Once again, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. But Eloy is just somebody we know that has been really good for a long time. He's still super young. A guy that can easily get motivated to go play for a contender, one of the best teams in all of baseball. Eloy's still 27 years old. Hitting the ball hard still. Actually, average exit velocity looks great. He's barreling up the ball. The bat speed looks good, squaring up the ball nicely. I would love to see the underlying stuff when it comes to batting average look a little bit better, because I know batting average is a tool that Eloy owns. He showed it off plenty of times in the past before. I know we're all still chasing, at least I am, chasing that rookie season that Eloy had, where he hit 31 home runs and hit 267. Eloy is a career 270 hitter. I expect him to be around that. But I really expect the power to play up with a guy like Eloy. He's super strong. He's 6'4", 250, just built like a mountain of a man. Eloy is a guy that can hit 30-plus home runs, driving a bunch of RBIs. He's not going to hit 30 homers the rest of the way, but if he plays, another 50 games, maybe he can hit, 15 homers if we're on the higher end of things, with a solid batting average the rest of the way. But Eloy is definitely a guy next year I'm going to be super excited to draft. I hope the price doesn't get outrageous, especially if he plays well the rest of the way. Of late, Eloy hasn't been fantastic. He's been dropped in a lot of leagues I was in. Honestly, I would go out there and see if he was dropped in your league and maybe give him a chance because I know that ownership percentage on Yahoo has stayed pretty low. So Eloy Jimenez, actually, I'm shocked. As I'm recording this, the trade deadline on Tuesday, this is about 8 p.m. Eastern time. Eloy Jimenez is 24% owned on Yahoo. Actually available in a few of my leagues. I'm going to go ahead and, make those moves after I'm done recording here, but I'll take the chance on a guy like this, especially in deeper leagues. The pedigree, even has 3 steals on the year. He's not fast, but shows you the will to steal. I don't know if Baltimore's going to have him running around out there, but I know the power is legit with a guy like Eloy Jimenez. Even the underlying stuff this year I mentioned to you looks really, really good. So let's give him a shot. I think that ownership percentage at least needs to be 70, 80%, because there's a chance that a guy like Eloy Jimenez really wakes up and can hit A lot of home runs, a lot of RBIs, and for a good batting average. Even the last 2 years, I know Eloy's been banged up, but 120 games last year for Eloy, 272 batting average, and then in 2022, 84 games, 295 batting average. Has really only had one bad year. That was the 2021 where he hit 249. Every year other than that, and this year he's hit over 267. So I really like the prospects of Eloy finally getting to play for a winning team, and I think we had him. Like I said, definitely a must-add. I spent a lot of times on those first two players, but we got Jazz Chisholm to the Yankees, Randy Arozarena to Seattle, and then a bunch more big ones that happened today. And those names and more are coming up next. And guys, real quick, we're talking about our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It is just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Exploring my skills on Prize Picks this season adds an extra layer of excitement to daily fantasy sports. With just a few taps, you can transform $10 into $1,000 easily. Prize Picks is the most incredibly user-friendly platform out there. You can make selections and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. And as the host of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, here are some rock solid picks. If you would like to give Prize Picks a shot, you can opt for Paul Skeens to have higher than 8 strikeouts in his next start. You can opt for Jose Ramirez to have more than 1.5 total bases in his next outing. Or you can opt for Bobby Witt to hit a dinger in his next game. And boy, has Bobby Witt been on fire. So I think that one's a lock. Just download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Just make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for your everyday to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on your YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And then once again, Matt and I are introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. As this season continues to unfold, you can rely on Matt and I for our dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call notifications, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. And then, guys, once again, it's so much more on Subtext that we can offer in this 30-minute episode. And if you are interested, you can find the link in the bio wherever you're listening or watching, or if not, it's available on any of our social media platforms. But guys, once again, I'm super excited. The trade deadline is such a fun time of year, and there is a lot of fantasy impact, and one that's already taken off, and I can't hide the excitement. I already threw up the name there on YouTube. Jazz Chisholm goes over to the Yankees, and, a trade where the Yankees give up 3 prospects that, honestly, I wasn't super familiar with, and I'm a Yankee fan and a fantasy baseball analyst, so kind of says a lot about them. And, as I'm recording today, once again, here Tuesday, 8:24 p.m. Eastern, Jazz is home again. Jazz, in his second game with the Yanks, went 2 for 4, 2 homers, 3 RBIs. One of those was against Zach Wheeler. And then today, against those same Phillies, 1 for 3 with a dinger, 2 RBIs. I mentioned it. If you guys listened to our trade deadline prediction episode, you heard me say Jazz to the Yankees. If you didn't, I'm going to break it down again. It's such a great fit because a young guy like Jazz Chisholm gets to go to a contender And he has that personality. He gets excited for the game. He loves to play, compete. And when you go to get to play with the Aaron Judges of the world, the Stantons, I know Stanton isn't the guy he used to be, but, the big personality, big name, and they get to kind of show Jazz the way. And he could bring that young youth vibrance to the clubhouse that the Yankees desperately need. I think Jazz Chisholm the rest of the way. A lot of power, a lot of speed. The runs and the RBIs are going to be good. The batting average is always questionable with Jazz. I think he has on the high end 265 upside, but not going to be shocked if he has his ups and downs, days where he goes 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, and days, where, he has the upside to hit 2 home runs, steal 2 bags on any given night. And another guy, Jazz Chisholm next year, if he continues to do what he's doing of late, even before we got traded, and especially these first, couple of games with the Yankees, where even his first game was a great 1 for 5, but stole the bag, got a run. I think he's going to find a spot. Looks like, that 5 spot in the lineup is looking good for Jazz. A lot of RBI opportunity, even, when he gets on base, he can steal. I think that's going to happen a lot. I'm just super excited. Next year, Jazz, a 30-30 guy. I think that's almost going to be a lock. 30-50 guy. I don't know. I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm just a little excited about Jazz. A little excited for my Yankees. But I really think I'm surprised at a lot of these moves at the trade deadline where, a lot of these big name players were dealt for, honestly, what I think is pennies on the dollars. I know some of the contracts were, going to be up at the end of the year. But when you go to some of these teams and, you like where you're at, the team's winning, you can see a lot of these guys say, I'm going to resign. I'm going to go back. I really like where I was, for the second half of the season. And I kind of just want to stay put. And I could see that happening, like I said, with a lot of names we're going to talk about today and some we have already talked about. Let's move on to this next guy, though. This trade is a little bit older as well. Probably heard about this one already. I haven't given my spin on it. We might not talk about it for too long. But Randy Arozarena heads over to Seattle. This one was a little bit more shocking. Looks like Seattle's trying to add a little bit of depth there. I like Randy. Goes from one team that's not that good to Seattle that is good, but the lineup isn't fantastic there at the moment. Maybe when Julio gets back, will look a little bit better. Randy, another guy that's been hitting better of late. I think he has a good second half ahead of him. Definitely not a 219 hitter. More of like, that 240, 250, which is around his career mark. Has power, has speed. Like I said, don't love the landing spot as far as Seattle's one of the harder parks to hit in. Not that Tampa was a great park to hit in of its own. But literally, Seattle is one of the worst parks, if not the worst, to hit in all of baseball. So I don't know if the power is going to play there. Speed's definitely going to play. He's been hitting second in the lineup with Seattle, so I do like to see that. And it has been good since he's got there. So I love to see this at the trade deadline. Stuff like this is always fun where these guys go to different teams, get excited to play the game again. And with guys that we know their repertoire and who they are, like a Randy Arozarena, I think we see him lean way back more towards the norm. So if your trade deadline hasn't passed in your league and you're going out there trying to acquire guys, I guess it's almost a buy high situation where, with guys like Jazz and Flaherty and Arozarena. Well, Arozarena maybe not so much because the season numbers don't look great. So you might still be able to, pay less than, the dollar he cost with Randy Arozarena. But I think for Flahry and Jazz, those prices aren't going to be cheap. And Eloy Jimenez, I think you can still pick him up in pretty much every league you're in. And if he is owning your leagues, another guy that you might not have to pay too much for. Let's sneak one more name in here. Let's talk a little bit of Lane Thomas, goes over to those Cleveland Guardians. And that's where I thought Randy was going to go. But you know what? As I sat back and thought about it, I was like, Lane Thomas might have even been a better fit for that Cleveland team where they've been getting the most out of their players for not only this year, but the past couple of years. And Lane Thomas's game has really kind of flipped itself on its head this year, as to where last year was a little bit more pop than speed. This year for Lane Thomas, flipped it on its head. Like I said, 8 homers, 28 steals for Lane Thomas this year. .253 batting average, 42 runs, and 40 RBIs through 77 games. That was with the Nats. Really like the prospects of him heading over to Cleveland, a team that, has been winning, is really good with their players, and has gotten the most out of their guys. I think Lane Thomas is another guy. I hate to keep talking about next year, but you know what? Unless you're going out there and trading for these guys, not too much actionable we can do, except really break down the fantasy impact going forward. And next year is a part of that. He hit second in his debut. Lane Thomas did with those Cleveland Guardians. And I think that's going to be a home for him. The runs are going to look really good. The steals, I think, are going to be phenomenal. And I think Lane Thomas, when you're talking about maybe 150 game pace next year, I think he could pace out maybe 15 homers, 40 plus steals, good runs and RBIs. The batting average has been something that's always been a little bit suspect for Lane Thomas. He's a career 251 guy, so I would expect him to be around that. But definitely something I'd be looking to draft is maybe an outfielder 3, utility bat, something along the lines of that. I really like the move for Lane Thomas. But guys, we do have a bunch more names coming up next for you. Just stick around. Because real quick, we got to talk about my friends at Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right, folks, let's keep things pushing here with a few more good trades. Let's talk about Tanner Scott going over to those San Diego Padres. And this is an interesting one. This is actually a bit actionable in the sense of, does Tanner Scott continue to close now that he goes over to those Padres? I can't give you a firm answer at the moment. Let's look at it like this. Let's look at him versus his competition, Robert Suarez. Scott on the year, 45 innings, 53 strikeouts, 18 saves, 6 wins, a 1.18 ERA, and a 1.01 WHIP. Absolutely just like dominant season from Tanner Scott. He's just really come into his own over the last few seasons after, Miami just has been giving him the chances. Robert Suarez himself has been no slouch at all this year. 41 innings for Suarez, 40 strikeouts, 23 saves, 5 wins, a 1.51 ERA, and a 0.86 WHIP. If you ask me personally, I haven't seen any quotes yet come out of San Diego on this one, but I see it being a situational play. I think they play the matchups. They see, they use the analytics and just see who's better for any given night. And I think Scott and Suarez kind of split the saves going forward. It's not an ideal situation as a fantasy owner if you have either Suarez or Scott going forward. If you do own either one of them, and I am a Tanner Scott owner myself, I'm going to be shopping him and trying to acquire another closer, and I'm going to keep my ear down to the ground and trying to pick up any speculative closers. If you listen to our must-add episode, what will be coming up later in the week, we will definitely have some of those names for you guys. Or even if you join us on Subtext and, shoot us a message on there, definitely have some great closer candidates coming up later in the week. So stay tuned for that. But Tanner Scott, it's just going to be interesting. Maybe don't make the move right away. Kind of see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks with Scott and Suarez. Maybe they lean one way or the other in San Diego. Like I said, I can't give you a definitive answer because they've just both been so good, other than I think they go committee. But can't really go too firm on that. Let's move on to our next name. Honestly, one of the guys that the trade deadline might have the biggest impact on, it's Jorge Soler. Goes from the Giants to the Braves. I love this landing spot for Jorge Soler. He was over there a few years ago, and he's really been breaking out of a slump. He has three hit games of late. He's just been really, really good. Another guy that I think I'm going to pick up here in a couple of leagues I see is available in that I play in after after I'm done recording, because Jorge Soler, let's just go back. Like I said, the World Series MVP, as a matter of fact, with the Braves a few years back. I want to just read off what he did there, because I believe it was a trade deadline acquisition back in 2021 when the Braves acquired him. It was 55 games after the trade deadline for Soler in 2021 with the Braves. 208 at-bats, 36 runs, 11 doubles, 14 homers, 33 RBIs, 29 walks to 45 strikeouts, and a 269 batting average. He could do a lot of the same, and like I said, he's been raking of late. Jorge Soler's up to 68% owned, which is getting up there. But like I said, a guy like this, where the power can be outrageous for the rest of the way on a Braves team that is really, really good, I am all about it. I'm just really, really buying in to Jorge Soler in the second half. Could be one of the biggest beneficiaries from the trade deadline, going from a team where the counting stats may not have been as great. He may not have been as motivated, but he goes to a place where he's just going to be as motivated for the rest of the season. Once again, that is Jorge Soler going to those Atlanta Braves. Tease this one at the top. Might as well just break it down here now. Trevor Rogers goes from the Miami Marlins over to the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles are really loading up and going for it this year, and I don't blame them. They suffered so many injuries in their rotation this year. It's been tough for them, but they go out and get a Trevor Rogers, who isn't fantastic, but Baltimore has been really good with starting pitchers the last couple of years. I think they can, like I said, I don't think they can unlock the Trevor Rogers of old, but if they can get 75% of that guy, even 60% of the old version of Trevor Rogers, the all-star version of him, I think that's going to be good for them. In fantasy, he's like, you're one of your last starters these days. He's been solid of late, honestly. Let's break this down. Since June 9th, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 good starts and only 2 bad ones mixed in there. So he's actually been really good. Trevor Rogers is 6% owned. He's on Yahoo. He's out there in a lot of leagues. This is a great, great speculative ad. This is a pause the podcast if you're in those 15-mans, deeper leagues, those AL onlys where Trevor Rogers gets thrown into the mix now. I think it's a pickup. I think it's a really good pickup. I think Baltimore can get this guy back on track once again. Trevor Rogers, and you know what though too, I'll tell you this: one of the better hauls of the day. I'll give Miami a due credit on this one. They get Conor Norby, who actually on the other side of this trade might get playing time right away. Conor Norby is one of the top prospects in the Baltimore Orioles system. I think he's another guy that we're looking into picking up. I can give you a semi-quick breakdown here on Norby if you guys bear with me a second. Conor Norby, second base eligible on Yahoo, only 9% owned, has struggled through his little stint here with Baltimore, 9 games. Does have 2 homers throughout that time, though, in the bigs this year, but has had a lot of success down in the minors. Norby has over the past few years. I've liked what I've seen from him. If Miami says that he's going to play every day, another guy in, he goes over from AL onlys to NL onlys. I'd love to scoop him there. If you're deeper leagues, your 15ers where you need a middle infielder, or a second baseman, I think Norby's a great play there as well. So Norby and Trevor Rogers, I think, are both going to be fantasy relevant the rest of the way. And Trevor Rogers, another guy I am super, super excited to add. Guys, you know what though? A couple other names that did get traded. Yusei Kikuchi goes over to the Houston Astros. I'm excited. I'm gonna say I'm not as excited about this one as some of the other ones. He's been pretty bad on the year. Even his last 3 starts have been bad. He did have the 13 strikeout game against Miami on July 9th. The season's been over a K per 9. 43% owned on Yahoo. Not super excited about Yusei Kikuchi. But, another name that did get traded. And then the last name, just want to throw out there, Eric Fetty gets traded over to the St. Louis Cardinals. He's actually been pretty good this year. Fetty, comes back to the States after a year away. A 3.11 ERA for Fetty on the year, 114 whip, 121 innings, 108 strikeouts. Not too much actionable here. He got traded. But guys, that is all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Guys, the trade deadline was awesome. I'm glad that you guys hung around with me and we got to break it down together. Join us on Subtext. We'd love to talk more with you guys. Chop up baseball as we get close to the Fantasy Baseball Championships. We'd love to help you guys lock in yours. But until next time, see ya.